things that we'll kind of touch on as we go throughout this as well. Okay, so I'm actually going to use an image that we used from last semester. So you can kind of see that's on my screen. I have it in Illustrator right now, just because that was a program I happened to have open, and I found the JPEG, so I placed it right into that. Okay, like Mrs. Bjork was talking about, this image probably took, oh, I don't know, we probably did 5 iterations of it before she was happy with the image. And this is actually, we ended up doing the reverse, or the negative of the original image, because she did it on a piece of glass. Or actually, she did it on a piece of acrylic. And so what happened is, when it's engraving onto wood, it's going to engrave the areas that are black or gray, okay? The areas that are darker, it's going to engrave deeper. The areas that are a lighter gray value, it's going to engrave them a little bit lighter. Okay? It's going to decrease the power of your laser. What happens with acrylic, which is going to be a clear plastic, is that it's going to engrave, but the acrylic, when it engraves, turns white. Okay? So it does kind of the opposite that the wood does. When it engraves the wood, it's going to become a darker tone of the wood. When it engraves the acrylic, it's going to become white. So when we did the original image, what happened was the mask that was on her head was white, and so it was leaving that alone, and it was actually darker on the acrylic than the mask that was right here on her face, which was black. So in order to get it to look right, we actually did the negative of the image, then she placed a black sheet of paper behind it. And it was kind of an interesting effect. She did it on 2 different pieces of material, so it was kind of an interesting contrast between the positive and the negative side. So, is that one still in the case, Mrs. Bjork?
She took it home.
She took it home. Yeah. Okay, so it was kind of a cool study, and again, there was a number of different things that we went through and did. She wasn't quite happy with some of the settings that we were running, so we would run a little bit of a test one. We would see if it was getting a little too light or if it was a little too dark, and we kind of played with it. And so one of the things I do want to talk about with these machines is, while they are very precise machines, and I know a lot of you guys have used these before and you kind of understand the capability of them, there is still an element of play, and there's an element of design, and there's an element of trying something, dissecting it, reflecting on if it's working the way you want it to work or not, and then still making adjustments. Okay? So you still have to be an artist when you're in here. You still have to use that critical eye to say, is this doing what I want it to do? And if it's not, what can I change so that it is going to do what I need it to do? Okay? So just to talk a little bit about some of the materials that you can use. Obviously, you can use fabric. That's worked pretty well in the past, depending on the fabric choices, like a tidal weave fabric. Like denim is going to be a little bit different than using something like cotton or like a microfiber towel up there. So each one, depending on the weave of the fabric, is going to have a little bit different. It's also going to depend on the color of the fabric that's in there as well. We can engrave onto a variety of different types of wood, and Mrs. Dirk did a great job of kind of explaining, like, the different types of wood are going to also give you different results, and not every piece of wood is the same, right? So I have some examples here of some different types of wood that you might want to use. Like, you know, if you have a harder wood, right? So if you have like an oak or you have like a maple, this has a lot more grain in it, right? It's not as soft as a pine is going to be, and so it's going to need a more high-powered laser setting and a slower burn speed in order to get your image to transfer. It's also going to pick up a lot of the wood grain that's on it. Okay? Doing something that's more of like a particle board or an MDF, a lot of that has already just kind of been removed. It's a composite material, and so you're going to get a much cleaner image that's on there. Okay? And then probably my favorite thing to do is on pine, or I do like doing it on the maple plywood, where you do have a relatively clean surface without a lot of those, without a lot of grain that's in there. So this, you can run at a higher speed, and you can also get more variety of values out of this as well. Okay, because this is a lighter wood, you can get more light gray values to show up than you can if you're doing it on a darker, harder piece of wood too. Okay, so the piece of material is always going to matter that you put in the machine as well. Okay. Acrylic works really cool, like I kind of talked about with Kara's image that she did. I also have some small mirrors, or I've had people bring in larger mirrors that you can engrave onto as well. Which again, anytime you use a mirror is going to play on that idea of reflection. And so that can be kind of a powerful media choice that you're using in something in art or photography. Okay, so I'm just going to run through just kind of a basic introduction to this here. So how many people, just so I know, have sat down at this machine and they've worked with me, or